The crystal chandeliers of Le Maison cast elegant shadows across white tablecloths as I adjusted my simple black blazer, a deliberate choice from my plain poor wardrobe. Victoria, my older sister, held court at the center table, her Chanel suit and perfect highlights screaming old money to her wealthy clients. I watched her lean in, that familiar conspiratorial smile playing across her lips as she stage whispered about her struggling sister. I'm Olivia Thorne, though my family prefers to call me Liv, diminutive, like everything else they think about me. At 34, I'm supposedly the family disappointment, the cautionary tale Victoria loves to share with her investment clients. Poor Liv, she'd say, still living off her savings, couldn't hack it in finance. If they only knew those savings were worth $4.2 billion as of this morning's market opening. Liv, darling, Victoria's voice carried that precise mix of pity and condescension she'd perfected over years of practice. So glad you could join us. Though. She glanced meaningfully at my off-the-rack blazer. You really should have mentioned it was at Le Maison. You could have borrowed something more appropriate. I took my assigned seat, the one furthest from her important clients, of course. The blazer's comfortable, I replied, watching her wince at such a pedestrian consideration as comfort. This is Harrison Blake, Victoria gestured to the distinguished-looking man beside her. He's considering having our firm manage his technology portfolio. Her emphasis on our made it clear which sister she meant. Harrison, this is my sister Liv. She used to work in finance too before I decided corporate life wasn't for me. I finished smoothly, accepting the wine list from the sommelier. Victoria's eyes narrowed slightly. She'd been hoping I'd let her finish the story about my supposed burnout and breakdown. Ah yes, Harrison smiled politely. Victoria mentioned you're between opportunities right now. Must be difficult in this economy. I caught the sommelier's eye. The Chateau Lafite Rothschild 1982, please. Victoria's perfect eyebrows shot up. That bottle cost more than what she thought I made in a month. Put it on my usual account, Jean-Marc. Of course, Miss Thorne. Your regular table is available if you'd prefer. This is fine for tonight, I cut in smoothly, watching Victoria's expression shift from surprise to suspicion. She'd never seen me here before, yet the staff clearly knew me well. Liv, she hissed once Jean-Marc left, you can't afford that wine. I'll have to cover it. Actually, Harrison interrupted, studying me with new interest. Did you say Thorne? Not Olivia Thorne. Victoria laughed, that silvery social laugh she used to smooth over awkward moments. Yes, that's her name, but of Phoenix Capital? Harrison continued, his focus entirely on me now. The same Olivia Thorne who just acquired Microtech Solutions. The silence that fell over the table was absolute. Victoria's wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. Her junior associate nearly dropped his phone. And Harrison Blake, one of her biggest potential clients, was looking at me like he'd just discovered gold. Microtech was undervalued, I said simply. Their AI division alone was worth twice the market cap. That was a $3 billion acquisition, Harrison said slowly. Cash offer if I remember correctly. Victoria's face had gone from cream to paper white. There must be some mistake, she managed. Liv works from her apartment. She barely makes ends meet. She runs one of the most successful private equity firms in the country, Harrison finished. I can't believe I didn't recognize you immediately. Your hostile takeover of Bennett Industries last year was brilliant. I smiled, remembering that deal. Victoria had spent weeks mocking my unemployed status during that acquisition, never realizing I was the anonymous buyer dismantling her client's company piece by piece. You're not. Victoria stuttered, her perfect composure cracking. Between opportunities? I supplied helpfully. No, I'd say I'm exactly where I planned to be. I turned to Harrison. Though I should mention I've had my eye on Blake Technologies for a while. Your quantum computing patents are particularly interesting. Harrison's eyes widened. We're not for sale. Everything's for sale at the right price, I replied, accepting the wine as Jean-Marc returned. By the way, Victoria, don't worry about the wine. I own the restaurant. Have since last year. Victoria's hands were trembling now. The careful narrative she'd built about her failure of a sister was crumbling in front of her most important client. Why didn't you tell me? She whispered. You never asked, I said simply. Too busy telling everyone how I couldn't handle the pressure, how I was living off dwindling savings. It's amazing how much you can accomplish when people underestimate you. Harrison was already pulling out his business card. I'd love to discuss those patents further, Miss Thorne. Perhaps a private meeting. Of course, I took the card knowing it would cost Victoria her biggest potential client. I have an opening tomorrow at my office. The one in the building I bought from Victoria's firm last month. They don't know that yet, but the announcement goes out in the morning. Victoria knocked over her water glass. The Madison building? But that's our headquarters. Was your headquarters? I corrected gently. Amazing how many properties you can acquire when your own sister tells everyone you're unemployed. No one even thought to check who was behind the holding company making the offers. The rest of dinner passed in a blur of revelations. Every dismissive story Victoria had ever told about me was unraveling. Every client at the table was suddenly realizing they were dining with someone far more powerful than their wealth manager. As coffee was served, my phone buzzed with a news alert. I smiled, turning the screen toward Victoria. Oh look, Forbes just released their 40 under 40 list. Guess who made the cover? She stared at my photo at the headline declaring me, investment's new queen, and something finally broke. All this time, she whispered. Every dinner where I pitied you, every client I told about my poor struggling sister, was free advertising, I finished. Nothing makes people underestimate you quite like family convinced of your failure. I stood, straightening my deliberately modest blazer. Harrison, I'll have my office send over the acquisition paperwork in the morning. Victoria, you might want to start looking for new office space. I hear rents are quite high these days. As I walked out of Lumaison, my phone buzzed again. A message from our mother. Victoria just called in tears. What did you do? I smiled, typing back. Nothing much. Just showed her that sometimes the biggest success stories are written in silence. Tomorrow the full scope of my empire would become public. The acquisitions, the properties, the companies I'd built while my family dismissed me as a failure. But tonight, watching Victoria's perfect world crumble over a bottle of wine I owned, was satisfaction enough. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't proving people wrong. It's letting them realize they never really knew you at all. The morning after my dinner with Victoria brought exactly the chaos I'd expected. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since dawn, texts, calls, emails, all from family members who'd suddenly discovered they had a billionaire relative. I sat in my real office, not the modest co-working space my family thought I used, but the entire top floor of the Phoenix Capitol building downtown. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a perfect view of the city I'd been quietly reshaping for the past 5 years. Your sister's been in the lobby for an hour, Maya, my executive assistant, announced. Security says she's tried 3 different names to get past reception. I glanced at the security feed. Victoria looked decidedly less polished than usual. Her designer suit was slightly wrinkled, her perfect hair showing signs of a sleepless night. The Madison building announcement must have hit. Your mother's called 6 times, Maya continued. Your father's trying to reach you through LinkedIn, and your cousin Sarah's already updated her profile to mention her close family connection to Phoenix Capital's CEO. I smiled, opening my laptop to review the morning's news. Phoenix Capital acquires Madison building in surprise move. Olivia Thorne, the silent billionaire. Investments hidden queen. How one woman built an empire in secret. My phone buzzed again. A text from Harrison Blake. Impressive press. When can we discuss those patents? Before I could reply, Maya's voice came through the intercom. Your brother Thomas is here. He's with your father. That was unexpected. Thomas usually avoided family drama, preferring to stay neutral in his role as a mid-level manager at our father's consulting firm. Send them up. They entered like men approaching a stranger's territory, which in a way they were. Dad's eyes swept the office, taking in the pristine modern design, the wall of business awards, the view that proved just how high his youngest daughter had climbed. Quite an office, he managed finally. Better than this sad little apartment you said I should be embarrassed to work from? I kept my voice neutral, remembering last Christmas when he'd lectured me about wasting my potential. Olivia, Thomas stepped forward. We need to talk about Victoria. Of course. They weren't here to apologize or understand. They were here to manage the family crisis. She's destroyed, Thomas continued. The Madison building was her biggest client portfolio. Without it, she'll have to actually earn her success instead of riding on client connections and family names? I supplied. You could have warned us, Dad burst out. All these years watching us worry about you, letting you think exactly what you wanted to think. I cut in. When did any of you actually ask about my work? My goals? My dreams? Victoria was too busy using me as her cautionary tale. You were too convinced I'd failed by choosing my own path. But billions. Dad sank into one of my visitor chairs. How did we not know? I walked to my window, looking out at the Madison building where Victoria's firm would soon be vacating. Remember when I left Harrison Corp 5 years ago? When Victoria told everyone I'd had a breakdown? They nodded. That story had become family legend. Poor Liv couldn't handle the pressure, ran away from a promising career. I left because I saw an opportunity everyone else missed. Tech companies were undervalued, ripe for acquisition. But I knew how this family operates. If I'd announced my plans, you'd have tried to control everything. Direct my investments. Manage my choices. Just like you always had. We were trying to help, Dad protested. No, I turned back to face them. You were trying to control. So I let you think I'd failed. Used my trust fund as seed money, lived modestly, worked in secret. Every time Victoria mocked my little apartment, she had no idea I owned the building. Every time you lectured me about responsibility, I was closing million-dollar deals. And now? Thomas asked quietly. Why reveal everything now? I smiled, picking up a folder from my desk. Because now I'm fully positioned. Every property, every acquisition, every piece exactly where I need it to be. I handed him the folder. Including Dad's company. Dad stood up so fast his chair nearly toppled. What? Phoenix Ventures, the holding company that's been buying shares in your consulting firm for the past year? That's me. As of this morning, I own 51% of Thorn Consulting. Thomas opened the folder, scanning the documents with growing disbelief. She's right, Dad. She's majority shareholder. You can't. Dad started. Can't what? Run the company better than you? The same way I couldn't handle finance? Couldn't manage my own career? Couldn't be trusted to make my own choices? My phone buzzed, Maya's message flashed. Victoria's trying the service entrance now. If you'll excuse me, I gathered some papers. I have a meeting with Harrison Blake about acquiring his tech patents. When, Dad? The board meets tomorrow at 9. I expect you'll want to prepare your retirement announcement. Retirement? His face flushed. You can't force me out of my own company. Actually, I can. And I will. Consider it a lesson in consequences. Now, if you'll have security escort you out, I believe my sister's about to make her third attempt to breach the building. As they left, Thomas paused at the door. For what it's worth, he said quietly. I always knew you were smarter than they gave you credit for. I just never imagined. No one did, I replied. That was rather the point. After they left, I buzzed Maya. Hold my calls unless it's Harrison Blake. And Maya? Send flowers to Victoria at the Madison building. White lilies. Card should read, sometimes the best success stories are written in silence. I turned back to my window watching Dad and Thomas exit the building. My phone buzzed again, a message from our mother. Family dinner. Tonight. We need to discuss this as a family. I typed back. Can't make it. Board meeting prep. But feel free to discuss my billions without me. You've had plenty of practice discussing my failures. Because this was just the beginning. Victoria's client exodus was about to start. Dad's retirement would shake the consulting industry. And my family? They were about to learn that sometimes the person they wrote off as a failure was actually writing their ending. The boardroom of Thorn Consulting looked exactly as I remembered it from childhood, all dark wood and leather chairs, designed to intimidate. I'd spent countless hours here as a girl, watching my father command his empire while telling me I wasn't cut out for real business. Now at 8:55 a.m. I sat in his chair, reviewing the documents that would reshape our family legacy forever. The other board members filed in slowly, their usual confidence replaced by uncertain glances and whispered conversations. They'd all received the morning's press packet, complete details of Phoenix Capital's acquisition, my father's retirement, and the company's new direction. Dad entered last, Victoria surprisingly at his side. They'd clearly coordinated their attack. Both wore power suits and matching expressions of righteous indignation. "This is ridiculous," Dad announced before even sitting down. "You can't just walk in and take over." "Actually, I cut in smoothly. I walked in months ago. You just didn't notice because you were too busy dismissing me." I nodded to my legal team. "Please distribute the voting records." Victoria grabbed her copy, manicured fingers trembling slightly. "These are fake. They have to be. Like my supposed breakdown was fake?" I raised an eyebrow. "Or my alleged failure." "No, sister dear, these are quite real. Every share purchase, every proxy vote, all perfectly legal and verified. You've been planning this." Dad's face had gone from red to pale. "All those family dinners where you let us lecture you were excellent opportunities to gauge the company's weaknesses," I confirmed. Amazing what people reveal when they think they're talking to someone who doesn't matter. The boardroom door opened again. Harrison Blake walked in, followed by 3 other major clients Victoria had been courting. Her face went from pale to ashen. "Harrison," she started, "we had a meeting scheduled for with Phoenix Capital," he finished. "Which, as we now know, means with your sister." He took a seat beside me. "The patents we discussed last night, Olivia. I'm ready to proceed." Victoria's Mont Blanc pen snapped in her grip, leaving a blue stain on her pristine white cuff. "Those were my clients," she whispered. "We're being the operative word," I agreed. "Just like this was Dad's company. Things change. Especially when you spend years underestimating the wrong person." I stood, straightening my designer suit. "No more playing poor. No more hiding my success. Let me be clear about what happens next. Dad, you'll announce your retirement effective immediately. Victoria, your position as head of client relations is terminated. The rest of the board can either adapt to new leadership or tender their resignations." "You can't." Dad started again, but I held up my hand. "Actually, I can. And I have. But here's what's interesting, I didn't have to." I clicked a remote, bringing up financial projections on the wall screen. "The company's been mismanaged for years. Client retention is down 40%. Innovation is stagnant. You've been coasting on old relationships while the market evolved." The board members shifted uncomfortably. They'd known this but had been too afraid to challenge my father. "In the past 6 hours," I continued, "Phoenix Capital has received 14 inquiries from major clients looking to transfer their business. Apparently, they prefer working with the sister who built a billion-dollar empire in secret over the one who spent her time mocking others' failures." Victoria stood abruptly. "This is about revenge. About making us pay for not believing in you." "No," I said quietly. "This is about business. You taught me that, remember? All those times you told clients about your pathetic little sister? Well, now they know which sister they should have been watching." My phone buzzed, a message from Maya. "Your mother's here with your Aunt Patricia." Perfect timing. "Send them in," I instructed through the intercom. Mom burst through the door, Aunt Patricia right behind her. They froze at the sight of the assembled board, the clients, the clear shift in power dynamics. "Olivia," Mom started, her society smile wavering. "Darling, this has gone far enough. We're family." "Funny," I interrupted. "We weren't family when you let Victoria spread rumors about my mental health. We weren't family when you excluded me from events because I was embarrassing. We weren't family last month when you all laughed about my sad little startup at Sunday dinner." I clicked through to the next slide. Phoenix Capital's complete portfolio. Properties, companies, investments spanning 6 continents. We're only family now because I'm worth billions. And that's exactly why this company needs new leadership. The board won't stand for this. Dad tried one last time. The board already has. I nodded to Harrison, who produced another folder. As of this morning, he announced, Phoenix Capital has voting agreements with 82% of shareholders. This transition is happening, Robert. The only question is whether you'll retire gracefully or be removed. Dad slumped in his chair, decades of authority draining away. Victoria's perfect makeup couldn't hide her tears. And Mom just stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. In a way she was. Maya will show you out, I said calmly. Your retirement package is generous, Dad. Victoria, your severance will be fair. Consider it a lesson in the danger of underestimating people. As security arrived to escort them out, I turned to the remaining board members. Now, shall we discuss the company's future? I have some thoughts on modernization. Later that evening, I sat in my office reviewing the day's press coverage. The business world was buzzing about the silent billionaire who'd orchestrated one of the most elegant corporate takeovers in recent history. Victoria's client list had already started defecting to Phoenix Capital. Dad's retirement announcement was drafted and scheduled for morning release. My phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. Always knew you were the smartest one in the family. I smiled, remembering all the family dinners where they'd dismissed my potential. All the celebrations I'd attended in simple clothes, letting them think I couldn't afford better. All the times Victoria had used me as her cautionary tale. Maya appeared in my doorway. Your mother's called 6 more times. Victoria's sent 4 emails asking to explain her side. And your father has finally learned what real business looks like, I finished. Hold all their calls. They've had years to talk. Now it's my turn. I turned to my window watching the city lights flicker on. Somewhere out there my family was realizing that success doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it builds in silence, growing stronger in the shadows of others' doubt. And sometimes, the sister they dismissed as a failure was actually writing their ending all along. Because revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's about showing people exactly who you've become while they were busy underestimating you. I picked up my phone and typed one final message to our family group chat. Next family dinner will be in my boardroom. Dress appropriately. After all, we have a new hierarchy to discuss. Then I turned back to my empire, the one I'd built in silence while they counted my failures. Because sometimes the best success stories are written by the people no one thought to watch. And I was just getting started.